I feel right at home here at the anchor desk. I'm at the Ice Palace in Detroit Lakes, February 24th, 2022. Remember that date because this is the biggest ice palace ever built in Detroit Lakes. Let's meet some of the people who were key figures in getting it done. Scott Walls is in charge of the builders of the Ice Palace. Tell us about where did you find these guys that were willing to be in this brutal weather?
Well, fortunately, I've lived here my whole life, so I know a lot of people, but a lot of them just come because they're excited about the project. This is such a cool thing. They just want to be part of it. I have a lot of high school classmates. Randy Gravel really stepped up and pulled in a whole bunch of people, including HDQ Landscaping, and then his brother's also on the works for public utilities. They sent a lot of people down here. Op Construction just stepped up out of nowhere and said, hey, we have 8 guys that we're paying for the winter that we're not going to put on unemployment, so if you need help. So they came down and helped for 10 days. We had, on most days, we had about 30 people here working on this.
How did you stay warm enough, though? Because the weather was brutal.
Well, good clothes and moving. It's just keeping moving really helps a lot, but the wind is tough. That was the hardest part, is the wind.
Yeah.
It gets through everything, it seems, but had to get done, and we did it, and everybody had fun.
Now, Kevin Mitchell did the lighting this year, and he told me how he laid the conduit ahead of time, and then when it came time to connect everything, he was telling me he still had frostbite in his fingers.
Yeah, so we came down in late October, and the city put concrete barricades in back, and we leveled the sand as level as we could get it with HTQ Landscaping, and then we dug a trench to lay all the conduit for Kevin. Filled them back in, and yeah, he said when he went back to go and try to push through the conduit, some of it had filled in with snow, and he had to take his gloves off and work on it. So yeah, he got some frostbite, it sounded like, or close to it anyhow.
And of course the lighting is just wonderful at night.
Yeah, we really, for a fully enclosed structure like this, the inside lights shining, wall washing the palace really looks beautiful, and he did a great job with how he's programmed the soft, subtle changes, and I even like the colors. They're just the kind of softer colors. It looks beautiful. He did a great job.
Yeah, the best ever, and this is the biggest palace ever.
Yeah, by basically double. The first one was the biggest, and this one's basically twice as big, twice as many blocks.
And of course, people always ask, when will you do it again?
Well, we'll see. The one thing doing a big structure like this, we don't think doing it every year, one, that we could sustain it, that it's a load on everybody, and then 2, I think it would kind of lose its luster a little bit too if it was up every year. So we're trying to figure out something that we can do each year to keep the spirit of it alive, and then every few years do a structure like this again. And
you still have a paying job, a company to run, so you take time out from that.
Yeah, I took about 4.5 weeks from work and came down here and worked on this every day. Fortunately, I have a great staff that covers for me, and we get slower in the wintertime too, so they made it a little easier. But yeah, it pays to have good employees.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the community.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've been told that it took about 4.5 weeks to build the Ice Palace from beginning to end, and I'm with the designer now, Hans Gilsdorf. Tell us about all the ins and outs, because wasn't it warm and sunny out here when you started this process of dreaming up what it's going to look like?
Yeah, when you think back, every year when we start with the palace, I'm designing it in the spring. So when we're trying to not think of ice, you have to kind of sit down and think of ice. So we design and we do all the pro cons of what works, what we want to look for the next year, and then we take a little bit of time off in the summer, and then we start in August and September when we're still in that summer mode, early fall, and we're talking ice, and and you get the design process going and things approved, and then we move forward with the construction team and lighting engineers, and this palace this year in particular was designed 2 years ago, but due to the pandemic, we had to kind of put a delay on it. So we ended up harvesting a smaller number of blocks, like 36, and we carved the heart shape, just love seed for Valentine's Day to get people out and about. But and so this palace has been sitting on the table for a couple of years, and it's finally great to see it up and it's all its glory. And then of course, the joke is every time we start this process, all of a sudden we have the worst weather hit us, and it was like minus 27 or something like that with high winds, and But we're all out there with good smiles, good faces, and good.
How do you stay warm enough? I'm wondering. Give us some tips. How do you stay warm enough when the when the wind chill is so extreme?
Well, like I grew up with my dad always saying when we were whining, it's like there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad choice of clothing.
Yeah.
So I guess here in Minnesota, the key is to layer up and then keep moving, and then we have hand warmers and toe warmers.
And every time I saw you, you had a gaiter on your face.
Yeah, you do cover up the face. I've over the course of the years doing this, I've experienced some frostbite, and so you just get used to the gaiter across your face and keeping warmer. And we swap out between sunglasses or goggles just because of the sun coming off the ice and snow is really bright.
So every time you do this, I don't want to say every year because it doesn't happen every year. It's way too big of a project.
Right.
But then you just try to dream up something bigger and grander every time?
Not necessarily bigger or grander. If you think of the second year, we had a smaller palace. It was the 3 panels. Mm-hmm. But yet we wanted to try something with putting lights inside the ice that occurs in Harbin, China. They put their lights inside the ice. So we got connected with the engineers in China, and we started working with them to learn that process. And then we did that for the bigger palace with a combination of wall washers and that kind of lighting. And this year, of course, everybody wanted to go big and grand for the 150th celebration. And that's what we did. But when you really think back on it as a group, we started talking about, okay, what's unique, what's kind of cool, like this year at the maze. How do we make something cool that's interactive for all ages versus a tubing hill? And if we're talking about ice in coming years, we start talking about what's a fun tweak, twist, something that catches people off guard and is always something fresh and new. Because I think if you do the same type of structure every single year, it might get a little redundant or old. But okay, keep it fresh, something interactive.
I love the loon. And then, of course, old 3 legs, too.
Right.
Tell us about the fellows that came from St. Paul area to do that.
So these, the sculpting teams they reside in the Twin Cities. John Cooper did the loon, and actually they just won the competition in St. Paul at the Winter Carnival. And John Cooper, if anybody remembers, did the pizza slice, the first palace, and then John Nose came back on the third palace and did the snow sculpture of the squid with the little fishing, the little Eskimo fishing on the top. And then Paul and Danina Hughes and their son came up this year. Paul and Danina, if you remember, they did the Jeep the first year, and then they came up and did the snow sculpture of the sailing ship coming through the snow block. So they did all 3 legs, and we kind of talked with them prior about some historical type of things or what we wanted to do that would kind of reflect our community, the lakes area and stuff like that. And of course, Paul and Nina leapt on all 3 legs. They'd heard about him, and then John and John were like, well, the loon, who can't argue with a loon? Just make a supersized loon, which is absolutely stellar. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Yeah, and of course, those are lit up at night too, thanks to Kevin Mitchell and his crew putting in the lighting. So it's just fabulous. Yeah, and the fun thing with these ice sculptors, none of them had ever worked with lake ice before. So the biggest challenge for them was actually working with lake ice. They've always worked with man-made ice for their sculpting competitions. So to give them the opportunity of using the ice that we use for the throne or the media desk or the things that we do that I'm not used to man-made ice. Yeah. And so I was kind of giving them advice on what to do, and they were just having a blast with it. And they were faced with the same kind of challenges, the imperfections, the cracks, the seaweed. It took him a while to carve down the loon's bill because there was a chunk of seaweed right in the middle of it, and he's like, I can't have a piece of weed right in the bill or the beak of the loon. So that's the kind of fun of the lake ice, and then meeting these different artists and the different people in the community, and it just really shows what Minnesota, what Detroit Lakes is all about. Our community is so rich with talent and people generous to give up their time to make our community that much better. Congratulations. Well, thank you. Becky Mitchell is the executive director of the Becker County History, Science, and Children's Museum, and you have gotten people. I just met a man in Bermuda shorts who came here from Rochester, Minnesota. He brought his buddy from Texas. You've got people coming from all over the place because you've done the marketing of this.
I am, yes, one of a couple of people on the marketing team, and we have had so much fun this year. Our social media pages have really taken off. We've had great local coverage, both in Detroit Lakes and from the Fargo News. And at least one of those features from Fargo was picked up on the AP, so we were national, which was kind of fun. Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's fun to hear comments from people, because I heard one person say,
Well, I knew that St. Paul did this, but I didn't realize that Detroit Lakes did this.
Yeah, I think that, and lots of communities, we've heard over and over and over that it takes a community like Detroit Lakes to do this. And I think that's maybe one step we even have above St. Paul is the sense of community and the people that have come out to help with it. And I think it adds to the story, and it gets more and more people excited about it.
Yeah, and you have quite a committee.
Yes, we do. We have a lot. Everybody has diverse talents, and we work really hard to kind of stay in our own lanes and let those, let the builders build, let the artists art or design, let them, And so we work really hard to complement each other, support each other, but stay in our lanes.
And you're part of Polar Fest.
Yep, our event is part of the Polar Fest festivities, which of course this week were 3 weeks long. So.
Yeah, awesome. And you have a really important role here educating the children as well. It's not just all fun and games to come and see the ice and the palace and to take pictures.
Well, it's a lot of fun and game.
Yeah, but they also get to get a lesson in history and the science of the ice. I didn't realize until I heard you talk that the brightness, even when it was 21 below this morning when I decided, what layers to put on, the bright sun is possibly melting the ice palace.
Yeah, the sun and the wind actually continue to deteriorate the palace or any structure that is up. Think of your home and how that wind will find a little hole and it just continues to work its way through, and if you don't deal with that, eventually it becomes a larger hole. And so ice is no different. The wind and the sun, no matter the temperature, it is not kind to our ice palace. Let's put it that way.
How many children do you figure that you've spoken to?
Oh gosh, well, I know we've had over 60 classrooms, and if you figure a classroom is on average 20 to 25 kids, do the math there, that would tell you that we've had well over 1,000 kids through. So
from the whole area. When I was out here the other day, they were from Holly.
Yeah, Holly to Frazee, basically to the north, to homeschoolers, to senior groups, all very diverse audiences that have come through.
And they see the picks, the axes, and the clampers, and all
the tongs and the
tongs. Some of the things were found under the water as time went on because they had been left there by the original people.
Yeah, so some of our artifacts that we've had donated were rescued from the water, as you stated. Some were kept in garages or barns, and maybe they harvested ice themselves, or maybe dad or an uncle did, and they've donated them to us. And so, you really get to see the different types of tools because ice harvesting did happen for so many years in our area. There was a lot of progression with those tools as well.
What were the years about?
Late 1800s to the winter of 1971-72. So that's, pretty recent.
Yeah, because when we bought our cottage on Melissa, there was an ice box.
Yeah.
And the Iceman cometh. He'd put the block of ice up there, and that's the way the food was refrigerated all summer.
Sure. Yep. That, resorts, homes, and the railroad. The railroad was a big consumer of the ice harvested here locally, in addition to a couple of the bottling companies. But the railroad went to refrigerated cars that winter, and so that is basically what caused the end of that, in addition to home refrigeration, is what caused kind of the end of the ice harvesting.
And you told us that it was the second largest industry in Becker County?
In the 1930s, it was the second largest industry, second to timber, to clearing land, I suppose. So, yeah, it was a huge operation here in this part. And if you're familiar with the name John K. West, we can credit him to kind of getting ice harvesting going in this area.
Well, he was the marketer back then, and now Becky Mitchell is the marketer.
Father of tourism, as we like to call him, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
Yeah. What a wonderful addition to Detroit Lakes. Not only the Ice Palace, but my buddy the Loon. I just love him. So thanks to all the people that made this possible, all the sponsors, all the builders, all the marketers, and all of you folks who came and made it exciting. It's great. Signing off for the Museum Roadshow, Kathy Coyle.